good evening. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Valletta Roll, and I'm so excited and honored to be here at the Dream Yard in this beautiful art center. Today, I have just the greatest honor of also being here with my daughter, Zinnia Roll, who may be, in and out, taking her breaks as she needs to. But we just feel so excited about being able to share this recipe together. This is something that our family really enjoys every spring. And so it's just, again, such a pleasure to be able to share it with all of you. So today I want to go ahead and introduce our real star, which is nettle. And I'm going to handle nettle very gently. Nettle is a very tender and very specific plant. So when we think about nettles, and a common name that we might hear is stinging nettle, we may think that's not to be touched and it's certainly not to be eaten. But I really want to share some of the more powerful properties of nettle before we even get to the taste. So some of the properties of nettle, as the name implies, are that it has a very powerful and potent acid. But again, these words stinging, acid, may not bring to mind delicious, may not bring to mind tasty. But another common acid that we use, which is a part of our recipe today, is lemon. So it has about the same strength as lemon, it just reacts differently with our skin. So, and even my hands are being warmed by touching the bag. So if you are ever coming into contact with nettle, it's usually recommended that you have gloves or you have a bag that you're using. The only thing that really neutralizes the sting of a stinging nettle is warm water. So once you add in the warm water, sting is done. These were picked fresh in the Bronx, and one of the only places in all the 5 boroughs of New York City where you are encouraged to go and pick your own food. So I'm talking about the Bronx River Food Parkway. This is an amazing place where they make sure to test the soil. They make sure to not spray any chemicals so that people can go and do what we've done since people ate food. We picked it. Food grows itself. Farmers cultivate soil. We love our farmers. Shout out to all the farmers. Food grows itself, right? So when we go and pick these foods, we just have to be very mindful, right? So this nettle is really a part of spring, and it's one of the first gifts of spring. So you can see these leaves are very small, and they're also very delicate. They're very tender. So we don't have to cook them long. They're going to keep a lot of their nutrition in the recipe, just like you would with a baby spinach. Very similar in flavor, super mild taste, but very nourishing. Nettles have some of the highest amounts of iron that you can get in a plant-based food, the highest amounts of calcium, some of the most nutritive plants that you can find anywhere. A lot of clinical studies are being done about nettle now. You can kind of look that up for yourself, but especially for those of us who may have anemia in our families, who may have sickle cell anemia in our families, either recessive for the trait or dominant for the trait. People who are dealing with different types of inflammation, rheumatoid arthritis. The list really goes on and on and on with a lot of scientific evidence pointing to how powerful nettles are. And most people would say they're a weed, which means you can find them anywhere. So this is medicine, this is nourishment. This is just growing, right? So that's my big shout out to nettles. And because these were picked fresh, you can also see that they're a little bit wilted, which means their sting is already a little less. So let's get right to how we treat these nettles. So the first thing we're going to do, and Zinnia, I'm going to ask your help with this. Can you open up that baggie, please? We're going to get out the baking soda. So I like to treat my fresh produce, especially if I've been able to harvest it, which these were. Shout out to Mama Journey for harvesting these nettles. Thank you, thank you. This is such a gift. You want to add about 2 cups of cold water, cold specifically, to about a teaspoon, and I'm going to eyeball it because I've been doing it for a while. a teaspoon of baking soda, and you want to soak it in the cold water wash for about 15 minutes. And again, being a nursing student, I'm real big into clinical evidence. So the clinical evidence shows that this can completely remove any external pesticide residue. And since we know this was grown in tested soil where they don't spray, we're feeling really good about this. So just for anything that you bring it home, even from the grocery store, it doesn't have to be, you picked it yourself, but baking soda can be really helpful because a lot of us who do eat healthy find that we can sometimes not feel well because there's things in our food that shouldn't be there. So that's how we handle that. Zinnia, thank you. Can you take this over to the sink, put it in, and put some water in for us? Okay, thank you. So I'm going to start turning my fire on. So while the nettles are soaking, we're also going to do the same thing with our potatoes. So the potatoes have a nice way of thickening up the soup without adding any dairy products. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to wash the potatoes by soaking them in the same ratio of 2 cups of cold water to a teaspoon of baking soda. Let it sit for 15 minutes. Can you do the same with this, please, Zinnia? And then you just want to make sure that it's completely covered in that water. If you do not have nettles growing, if you don't happen to be blessed by living in the Bronx, you know, be so lucky, and you can't go to the Bronx River Food Parkway and pick the nettles yourself, you can use baby spinach. Sometimes it's hard to find nettles because you don't know where to get them. So baby spinach is a good alternative. Most people have find that spinach has such a mild taste. So you can use them interchangeably in the recipe for those of us who are at home or wanting to make this again. For our other ingredients, we have shallots. Some of us have digestive issues and find that onion is, not compatible. So you can always leave the shallots out, but they do add a nice flavor. And we're gonna add the shallots. We're also gonna add tarragon. Something else we're gonna use, and we talked about acids in our foods earlier. We're gonna use some lemon juice. So lemon is just a great way to brighten flavors, and especially when we think about flavors of spring, the lemon just adds just like a really nice tartness to balance out some of the earthier flavors of the potato and the nettle. All right, so that's what we're gonna be working with. It's a very simple soup. You're gonna add salt, and here you can either use iodized salt, which a lot of us use. This recipe doesn't call for a lot of salt, so again, for those of us who are watching our salt intake, we want to be mindful of that. It's a pretty low salt recipe, but you can always use other salts that are just sometimes a little easier to digest. Kosher salt, there's a lot of options there. And then a little bit of pepper. So you can use white pepper, red pepper, black pepper, and that's the taste. All right, so we're going to start heating up our broth. I use a vegetable broth that really adds a nice flavor. Something else that I love to do in spring, once you start getting all those fresh veggies again after the long winter, is to start saving all the ends. The ends of your broccoli, the ends of your carrots, all the little things you're like, I don't eat that. Well, you can boil it down and strain it, and then you have your delicious, rich veggie stock to add to your soups. So we don't have to waste anything. So we're gonna put our potatoes in. Hopefully this stays hot, and they're gonna boil. Zaya, can you hand me that spoon? Yeah, thank you. And so as this starts to boil, again, we slice our potatoes thin, as you can see, and they're gonna boil, and they won't have to cook very long, 10-15 minutes until they're tender. We're gonna put the top back on. We'll add in the shallots a little later for the flavor. And again, simple. There's already salt and pepper in the stock that we're using today, but we're gonna add a little bit more. And then again, our nettles go in last. They wilt for 1 minute, and that's it. We'll blend it and we'll have soup. Have this beautiful heart-shaped leaf. They have these little hairs on the stems and the leaves. And also, when you see the plant growing, even when it's young, it's gonna have a pretty tall stem, and then you're gonna have these smaller stems that come out. When you look at it from underneath, you can see that that stem is growing from, the smaller stems are growing from the stalk all the way around. So these are the types of things that foragers do to identify plants. They look for height of stalk, they look for where it grows. Nettles like to grow in patches around each other. You know, we like to be together. So nettles like to be together with other nettles. You will usually see them like take over vigorously, which is why some people call them a weed. But they know where they're welcome and they go there, right? So the leaves will start to fan out. You can see this formation that they make here when you look from the top. So you've got two coming out this way and two coming out this way, and they'll continue to spread like that. So you want to look for shape of leaf, that's a serrated edge with the little hairs on it. Type of stalk, some stalks are round, some stalks are kind of more square. You want to look for where they're growing and any other characteristics. So that's very unique to nettles, but it also just helps you feel more confident. When you start really studying a plant, it's one of those things, and foragers talk about it. The term honorable harvest that I'm using is coming from a book called Braiding Sweetgrass by a indigenous scientist and incredible, scholar, Robin Wall Kimmerer, who talks about how, once you start looking for something, you're going to keep seeing it. So we're going to add in our shallots. This is going to boil for about 10 minutes. I'm going to add in the nettles, and then we're going to be done. I'm adding it in. It's looking quite, it's standing upright from the stem, but as soon as I get it in that hot water, then it just immediately starts to wilt. So then I know I don't have to boil it. I don't have to cook the nutrition out. I'm just letting it wilt here, and we're already getting that good aroma, the richness of the veggie stock, the potatoes, adding that thickening, and then the nettle leaf here. So that's almost cool enough to blend. All right, so we're gonna pour in a little bit.
Wow.
It's very green, right, Z? And it's a very light soup. Thank you. I hope you had fun making nettle soup with us. Again, big shout out to DreamYard. Big shout out to Sadea and Nadira specifically, who helped bring me here today. I'm so excited. Abba Austin, all of the amazing staff here at DreamYard, and the incredible programming that takes place here. Big shout out to the Bronx River Foodway and our forager, Mama Journey, who brought us the nettles. And again, my name is Valletta Roll. This is my daughter. Oh, I got to tie that apron. This is my daughter, Zinnia Roll Gordon. And you can follow some of the things that we're doing in the community at Kibilio.org, KIBILIO.org. You can also find us on Instagram at just Kibilio, KIBILIO. And it's been so fun to be here with all of you to share this food, to share traditions, and to learn from each other. Thank you.